So, Dot Keet, you are one of the voices from the South who has been invited here to the European Summer University to talk about, among other things, Europe's role and interests in the world today. What do you think of the Summer University so far?
It's very encouraging to see so many people, radical activist people from Europe gathered together, and knowing that they are concerned about questions not only within Europe, but Europe's impact and role in the rest of the world. It's also very encouraging for me, as a person of a certain age, to see so many young people. That is really wonderful, you know. So we know there's the next generation are taking over. It's very encouraging.
And you have also it's been important to you during this time here to emphasize that you don't share the negative view presented in European media of Africa. And you also talked about the positive tendencies and developments in civil society and mobilization in Africa today.
As anybody who tries to develop new social movements knows, it's a very slow process. It's a deep and ongoing process. And in Africa it's particularly difficult because many people are struggling in their day-to-day lives. In general, we don't have a lot of resources. There are frequent, for example, in Zimbabwe, electricity cuts, water cuts, and in many African countries there are very authoritarian governments. So it is a slow process, but it is very encouraging to see that despite such difficulties, new social movements are emerging. People are responding to the devastation that has been caused in Africa, particularly by structural adjustment programs of the IMF and the World Bank, which has destroyed the industry, that small, weak industry that existed in Africa has been destroyed, and millions of people have lost their jobs in the towns and in the villages. Liberalization and marketization of agricultural production. The IMF and World Bank forbid African governments to continue subsidizing, developing seeds, providing transport, marketing facilities for small farmers. These things have been removed, and agriculture has been very seriously weakened, because agriculture everywhere is a very insecure livelihood and needs support from governments. But equally seriously, because the IMF and World Bank forced African countries to liberalize their trade, to open up their markets, they have been flooded with agricultural imports and processed food imports from Europe and from the United States and so on. And this has really undermined both small agricultural producers and small industry. And I will give you one example. In West Africa, small farmers there, mainly women, around the towns, used to grow tomatoes. And these were not these perfect tomatoes that they could export to European consumers. So they were used in local industries processing to make tomato puree and tin tomato for local use. But these countries have been flooded with canned tomatoes and puree from Greece, from Italy, from Spain, from France, and both these industries have been closed down, and the small tomato producers. So these are real problems. And now these small farmers, the fisher people who are seeing Spanish boats taking all the fish, the cotton farmers who can't sell their cotton in the international market because subsidized American cotton is pushing down the price. All of these people are beginning to form their own social movements, to express their needs. But also women and students, and particularly in our part of Africa, a very big movement is developing for the right to health treatment, because what was previously public health has now been privatized or commercialized under the pressure of the IMF and World Bank. And as you know, we have 25 million people with HIV in Africa, and we, as well as other diseases like malaria and so on. So that is another very big movement, the health movement in Africa. So we are seeing in many sectors people are organizing themselves around their interests and their needs.